Welcome to the Gashouse gang. If I can talk with Kevin Wheeler, I'm Tom Ackerman. After this, I'm going on the road to do some college basketball in Kentucky and in Nashville. So I better be on my game here. Better be able to speak English. Hello, Kevin.
How's it going, buddy?
Things are going great. I dressed up for the occasion. For those of you watching on our live stream, you should subscribe to our YouTube channel, KMOX Sports. We post all of these there, and I think they have a pretty good shelf life. You can listen to them, and welcome all of you who are watching us on replay. We are live right now, however, and you can always comment, YouTube, X, Facebook. We're all over social media. Share it with your friends. I think people are starting to figure out, Kevin, that we are live every day at noon. Bernie Miklasz joins us and Matt Pauley, all four of us on Mondays. Then we pair up throughout the week. It's really, I think, a good opportunity, and I will drop this little teaser is we're going to start adding some guests to the mix. So much like about 4 years ago when I started the Garage Happy Hour and we started adding guests, that's when that show really took off. I think you can expect much of the same here on the Gashouse gang. We already have the solid foundation of all of our sports talent contributing. So it should be fun.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. All right. So let me start with this. What the heck is this golden at bat thing that the commissioner Rob Manfred says has created a lot of buzz? That's the first I've heard of it. What is it? What don't look, let me just start before you go off, okay? Rob Manfred is a labor lawyer. Rob Manfred's a labor lawyer. That's why he's commissioner of baseball, so that they could have him in place for those tense moments which they have had. Don't drop this narrative on me that it's been there's some buzz about this thing that I've not heard about. I'm tapped into just about, and so are you, everything when it comes to baseball. So I don't know what the heck he's talking about. Please explain to me this gimmick that he threw out yesterday.
All right, so for the people that haven't seen it, we can lay it out real quick. Jason Stark, who's phenomenal. None of this is against Jason. Unless he likes the idea, in which case I don't like that part about Jason. No kidding. I love him. He's one of my favorites.
I love Jason. Yeah, we all love Jason.
He's the best. And he loves these kind of creative ideas, right? He kind of gets into it. He writes articles all the time about things baseball could try, things like that. So this is kind of his wheelhouse. But he wrote about it for The Athletic after Rob Manfred mentioned something about it on a podcast. So the idea would be the golden at bat is an opportunity, seventh inning on, in a big spot for a team to just say, well, whoever's supposed to hit here is not going to hit. We're going to put our best player there. So let's say your best player hit last inning. Let's say your best player is 2004 Albert Pujols, and he made the second out in the seventh inning. But in the eighth inning, bases are loaded. He's not due up for another few at-bats. You could slide him into that spot, and you can do it once a game from the seventh inning on. That's the idea of the golden at bat. And it's the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard of. It doesn't fit the structure of the sport. You're trying too hard. You're trying too hard to be basketball. You're trying too hard to be football, where the design of the sport makes it so that the best player is going to have the ball in crunch time, right? Like Tom Brady was going to have the ball when it mattered for the Patriots. Michael Jordan's going to have the ball when it mattered for the Bulls, right? You can't create that in baseball. The sport is not built that way. It's not better that way. And here's the thing all right, you can tell I'm self-editing. I'm pausing briefly so I do not violate any rules because this is going to air later on. I know there's no rules for streaming.
But it's on KMOX, a family station.
Right. We want everybody to listen. We don't need to turn this. We don't want to go blue. I'm self-editing, which is why I'm pausing and stopping. But it doesn't serve any damn purpose. So do you think a gimmick like this grows the sport? In what way does the sport grow from doing this? Is this kind of gimmick going to make a non-baseball fan watch baseball? Because I got news for you. It's still baseball. If you don't like baseball, if you're not into it, this kind of thing is not going to get you into it. It has nothing to do with drawing, and it's just a gimmick. It's just, and by the way, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I got to believe that most teams would look at this. Most executives would look at this and say it's insane. You work your ass off all game long to build a plan so that you can navigate through the other team's batting order, right? And now all of a sudden people get to change that and just, here's a little monkey around. Just go ahead and bring up any player you want in the most important situation. It's stupid. And look, a lot of people felt that way about other changes. I didn't. I don't mind changes, Tom. I think you're like me. I loved, and I know people disagreed with me. You might have, I don't remember. But a lot of people were mad when they were going to bring the DH to the National League. I loved it because watching pitchers hit like crap is boring and stupid. And teams refuse to develop pitchers as hitters. So what's the point? Like, what's the point of a guy taking 3 at-bats from the time he's in high school until he reaches the major leagues and then saying, here, buddy, here's a bat, go hit Jacob deGrom? Like, it's that was stupid. I was all in on the DH. I didn't love the pitch clock at first, but it wasn't crazy. So I was like, let's give it a chance. It worked. It's fine. I'm not anti-change. It's just that this idea is stupid.
Okay. It is stupid. I was anti-DH at first, but then I warmed up to it. Once they got it going, I thought, you know what the heck? I mean, it's the way that it's going to be. I mean, bring the DH to the National League and you can see an extra hitter and blah, blah, blah. I was not really anti-pitch clock, but I was very skeptical of what this would do and why, and some of the other rules that were being implemented about speeding the game up. I'm like, why do we need to speed the game up? There's no need. If the baseball's great the way it is, go get a hot dog, come and go as you please. Who cares? But you know what? It actually turned out to be a good thing, I thought. I think the game has a nice pace to it. I like that. And I would like to know what Morgan Sword thinks of this rule that's been, or this, idea that's been thrown out there. Morgan Sword is the executive vice president of baseball operations, Major League Baseball. In my opinion, he's a young man who I think could be the next commissioner, or should be a candidate for a future commissioner spot. I think he's that good. And he's kind of been the guy in charge of explaining to everybody and sort of researching the pitch clock, some of the other rules of disengagement, things like that. And I think that he held on to, the tradition of baseball and respected it while doing that. He's also been the one who's been monitoring the robo-umps and things like that in the minor leagues that people have really enjoyed, that I'm also skeptical about the way that he explains these things. So Morgan Sword, if Morgan Sword is good with it, I'd like to hear what he has to say. Otherwise, I think it's kind of silly. And it's a reality TV gimmick, man. I mean, it's like an extra challenge on Survivor. Like, you don't get to manufacture drama. That's the point. Drama has to be natural. It has to be organic, or it's not drama. It's just created. Yeah, and it just messes up everything that a manager and a team is trying to do strategy-wise for the game. I mean, then where do you put – I don't understand. Like, what do you just bring the guy – you mess up the order? It changes the whole strategy of the opposing manager. What do you do with your lineup? It's too confusing. To me, I'd love to ask Whitey Herzog the question. God bless him. What would he think? He would probably he would have to self-edit. He would have to self-edit like I was. He'd say it's horse bleep. That's what he would say. Oh, unbelievable. And while we're at it, okay, so Major League Baseball, and I like some of the people in charge there. And Rob Manfred's, I don't think he's a bad person, but he's a labor lawyer. He went to Harvard Law School. He studied labor law. This is why he's the commissioner of baseball. Not to come up with, I'm sorry, but he's not the guy to be promoting new things for baseball. Let somebody else handle that. But while you're at it, Commissioner, can we concentrate on things that we really need in baseball? Like, how about let's try to figure out a way that New York, LA, and Boston and Chicago, or whoever else, the big money teams, maybe I should leave Chicago out. Those teams haven't been very good. Mm-hmm. But the big money markets get all the players and can sign all the players. Maybe we should work on that a little bit so that 26 teams in baseball feel like their fans feel like they've got a shot. Because that's, to me, a problem that is growing and is not slowing down. I mean, Soto becomes the guy in free agency, there are only 5 teams that can sign that guy. Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, maybe the Red Sox, and I don't know, probably throw one other in there that I'm not thinking of. That's pretty much it. And that's the way it's going to be from here on out. I don't like it.
Well, to me, there's 2 parts to this. When it comes to the big money teams, first of all, there's an awful lot of panic about a thing that hasn't happened yet. Can we at least let a dynasty happen before we panic about it? Because football's had multiple dynasties since the last time baseball's even had one. The last dynasty in baseball was the mid to late 90s into the early 2000s with the Yankees. It's been more than 20 years since anything remotely resembling a dynasty has existed when it comes to championships, right? Yeah, I mean, like the Dodgers are in the playoffs a lot, and that happens in football and basketball too. It happens in the Cap League too. The NBA is nothing but dynasties. It's always one dynasty following another. That's the entire history of the sport in my lifetime. Heck, it's before my lifetime. Go back to the 50s and the Celtics. It's just one dynasty after another. But can we at least let it happen before we panic about it? Because it ain't happened yet. The Dodgers and Yankees have 2 World Series combined in 15 years, despite all the money they're spending. The new playoff format kind of allows for a team to be in there with them and beat them, even if they can't beat them with the checkbook. But here's the second part. I agree with you, Tom. There's a potential problem. And I think it's something that we should get ahead of, that the sport should get ahead of. But this is the thing that really pisses me off about this conversation. This is not about salary caps. It's not about salary floors. This is a revenue sharing issue. And the fact of the matter is, those franchises you listed, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mets, the Phillies, they're greedy. They don't want to share. It should be their responsibility to make sure that the rest of the baseball teams have more ability to compete. This is not on the players to fix this. This is not about capping what a player can make or capping what a team can spend. This is about revenue sharing. And now is the time where if Rod Manfred had any guts, he'd be fighting this fight. Instead of being a lackey and a kiss ass for the owners, he would be fighting this fight because the TV world's changing. And there are a lot of teams that are going to be left behind, or at least in lesser positions than they were 5 years ago. This is the time to make it more like the NFL, more like the NBA when it comes to revenue sharing. I'm not saying imitate the NFL, but there's a reason Green Bay can compete with New York and Dallas. And it's because the owners in New York and Dallas aren't greedy and they're not keeping it for themselves. I mean, the Dodgers could run a $500 million payroll if they want. Their revenue, $700 million a year. They could easily run that. So unless you're willing, Rob Manfred, so here I am, Tom, I'm calling out the commissioner on the Gashouse gang. If you have any guts, stop talking about stupid crap like the golden at bat and get those greedy jerks in the big markets to share more, because that will be better for the sport. That's how you grow the sport. That's how you get people in Pittsburgh and Colorado and all these markets where people don't have hope. That's how you bring them to the table. Convince your billionaire owners in the biggest markets to play nice and share. Something the rest of us learn in kindergarten.
The Gashouse gang. The Gashouse gang is sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. With Kevin Wheeler, I'm Tom Ackerman. Just to pick up on that topic, my concern, Kevin, is that they are out of touch a little bit with young fans. And I know that young fans are still interested in the game, and there is some evidence of that. But let me tell you something about young sports fans. They don't as much have loyalty to a team as they do to players. My concern is that young fans, and I love our fans so much, and I love, born and raised in St. Louis. That doesn't make me any more of a Cardinal fan than somebody who just came in. But I'm just saying that my concern is when I see young fans, they love Shohei Ohtani, and I got it. Like, he's amazing. but they also love him so much that they are now fans of the Dodgers. They're going to wear Ohtani jerseys. They're going to wear Dodgers jerseys. They love Soto. If he becomes a Dodger, they're going to follow him. If they love a certain player, they are going to follow that player. The same thing happens in the NFL. The same thing happens to young hockey fans. I'm telling you, NBA for sure. I mean, you're a fan of LeBron, and basically you'll follow wherever he goes. Yeah. My concern is that the Cardinals, I'm just going to be selfish, could lose fans if they don't have the big marketable stars that these young fans are going to say, I don't know. I know when. I don't know. Okay, I like the Dodgers, Daddy, because I like Ohtani. So I'm going to root for them. That never in a million years would that happen when I was a kid. Never. So that's my concern about the whole
thing. No, that's a fair concern. That's something that we have to consider because that's part of understanding the changing demographics of your sport. Now, baseball has done better the last couple of years with younger fans. They've gotten more younger fans watching on TV. The fact that they're going to be doing things like the Cardinals are doing now and others are doing, where you can get direct-to-consumer streaming without having to have a TV service, without having to have a cable or satellite service. That appeals to younger audiences, right? People in their 20s and 30s are not going to go get cable. They're not going to go get direct TV. They're not necessarily going to change their TV provider, even if it's streaming, just to get baseball. So you got to put it where they are, right? And you're right, Tom. There's another part. You got to appeal to their tastes, to their sensibilities. And I completely agree with that. But you know what really builds the young fan base? Being competitive. You're a kid, you're 10 years old growing up in Colorado. What hope do you have for the Rockies? There's no bandwagon to jump on.
True.
If you're a kid in Tampa Bay, you're 10-year-old baseball fan in Tampa Bay, and your ballpark is always empty, and your team is always trading off players as they start to make money. How are you going to have those attachments to players? And now the Rays are a little bit different because they've remained competitive. But I think all this ties together, Tom. I think the revenue sharing that I'm talking about ties into this. One thing, and I'm talking kids, less than young adults, but guess what kids become? They become young adults. If you get them when they're 9 and 10, they're going to be there when they're 25. They're going to be there when they're 30 because that's what happens. We form these attachments when we're young. Kids are bandwagon jumpers. They want to jump on something fun. You know what's not fun? A 15-year rebuild in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That's not fun. No. There's no kid there that's like, ooh, can't wait to go to a Pirates game when they're out of the playoffs for 8 straight years. And that's where the game has to be smart. And that's why I'm talking about this revenue sharing. You're right. There are other things aside from the revenue sharing, but it all ties together. And the one thing that's going to get kids is to have a team that they think can win. Because kids are bandwagon jumpers, man. I was one too. We all are. And think about St. Louis. Why do the Cardinals have such a great multi-generational strong fan base? Well, there's a lot of reasons. One of them is the building that I'm in right now, right? KMOX is a big part of that because of the history there. One of the things is just because of that, you have a regional fan base and not just a metropolitan area that you cover. But the biggest part of it is probably the fact that they've had winners for every generation. Go back as far as you want. Every generation has seen the Cardinals win and win at an elite level.
Absolutely.
In fact, that's something after 2011, and you were there, you and Claves and a bunch of us were there when the Cardinals were giving out World Series rings to employees, right, to people around the team. That's something that I sat there at the table with Bill DeWitt Jr. and talked about how he was and how much it mattered to him and how much he recognized that it mattered that every generation had its winners. You go back as far as you want. Go back to the days of the Gashouse gang and move forward. Every generation has seen winning, has seen championships, has seen great teams and Hall of Fame players. That's part of the core of the Cardinals. And that'll work other places. That'll work in Detroit. That'll work in Pittsburgh. That'll work in all of the places we talk about that are low revenue markets. But it's hard to do when you're getting bullied by the 5 or 6 teams that can outspend anybody without sharing that revenue. So it's a multi-layered challenge, Tom. I mean, it's, I think it's definitely important at the very least that you acknowledge that there are some of those changes. And that's what when you talked earlier about speeding up the game and creating more action. Yeah, that is for the younger audience. Mm-hmm. And those of us that are, like 50, 52, 53, I'm 53, we just got to deal with that. And, those changes, they've been fine. They're not really noticeable. They don't ruin the game or anything like that.
This picture above me, that's of the 2011 World Series. We don't hang NLDS pictures.
Right.
I mean, you hang milestones like 700 or something, and you hang World Championships. That's what we go by, our stars, our major milestones, things that you'll never see again. Championships, major milestones.
And that really gets to what you mentioned, Tom. Who's the star? Who are the star players that the young Cardinals fans can gravitate toward and say, that's my Cardinal, or that's my favorite player? Now, again, it's not saying they don't exist. It's that they don't exist in full. Mason Wynn might be that guy. Hopefully, Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman can be that guy, and maybe J.J. Weatherholt can be that guy. But the point is, you got to have those guys because this team always has.
The Gashouse Gang on KMOX with Kevin Wheeler. I'm Tom Ackerman. Let me tell you about another star that I think a lot of people are kind of shrugging their shoulders, as Ben Frederickson wrote in the Post-Dispatch. The reaction has been pretty mild when it comes to Nolan Arenado being traded. And he's not going to be traded, I don't think, this weekend, or maybe not next week in the winter meetings, but they are discussing and talking to teams, and both sides appear to be open, and there's not a lot of unrest. I know that Bernie yesterday talked about some of the reaction on social media, but again, you could say, it's a beautiful day at Busch Stadium, the sky is blue, and they would be like, you suck. It's sometimes gray. It's just the way it is on social media. But when it comes to Arenado, Kevin, what is that reaction? Is that, as Ben suggested, that people are understanding of the movement that the Cardinals are making? Is it because Arenado has had not the greatest era with the Cardinals, or what is it?
It's a lot. I mean, one part of it is the player hasn't been what we thought he would be, right? And this is a two-way street. Bernie brought it up yesterday. I thought he made a really great point, and we can build off of his really great point. And that is, he's getting feedback from people that are mad at Arenado, and separately getting people that are mad at the team for how all this is playing out. And the reality is, the blame lies with both, right? The Cardinals haven't achieved at the level that they have tried to, and that was the selling point to Nolan Arenado. Hey, don't opt out, opt in, because we're going to be trying to win. We're going to be contending. And it didn't work. But part of the reason it didn't work was that Nolan wasn't good. He wasn't the player that he was supposed to be. Now, it's not all on him. Some of it was on Paul Goldschmidt. A lot of it was on starting pitching at various points, right? 2023, it was about the starting pitching falling apart and the bullpen falling apart. So it's not all been about those guys. But how different does this team look, Tom, last year? Are we even talking about a reset if guys like Arenado and Goldschmidt just played to the back of their baseball card? So it's a two-way street. The player, in this case Arenado, didn't do his job at the level that was expected the last 2 seasons. That contributed to the team not being as good as it needed to be, but it certainly wasn't the only factor. There were a bunch of other ones too, including the lack of production from young players that they've been banking on and talking about for a while. And the Arenado thing is really interesting too, Tom, because, and I'm curious to see where you want to take it with timetable stuff, but it's a pretty limited group that you're going to be trying to deal him to. It's going to be a contender. He's not going to approve a deal to a non-contender, and it's got to be somebody that's looking to shore up third base and maybe hoping for more offense, but not necessarily banking on more offense. So if you're looking at a team that we've talked about a bunch, we talked about the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Astros, those teams all have core star hitters. They don't need Arenado to be that. If he's just above average as a hitter and he's a great defender, those teams are getting what they need. Then the question is, what do you get? How much do you have to pay to make him go away?
I think he's a great plan B for a team that doesn't get Soto.
Yeah.
Because he is star power and he does still have some offense left. I would
Yeah.
not be surprised at all if of course, he's still an elite defender.
Yep.
So, if you're a Cardinals fan, you just don't want him to go to, let's say, the Cubs or something like that, which I don't think they would never trade him within the
I think they'd probably keep him before they would do that, but
so
I don't think the
by
Cubs
the way,
would do it anyway.
They're not going to give him away either. I mean, and maybe there's a slight chance that he changes his mind and says, I don't think I am open to a trade. I think I will ride this out. My family's happy, and Lars Nootbaar is my boy, and I like hanging with this team, and Ollie's cool and whatever, and let's go play and just see what happens. But I think that he wants to win a championship. I mean, and the Cardinals are not in a position right now, unless a miracle happens and all of these young guys go crazy, to compete for that. So, but at the same time, they're not going to give him away, which means it probably drags out a little bit. I think that this will be a process that you'll have to deal with here for the next few weeks. And that's hard, I think, for the Cardinals in selling tickets, because fans are like, I like coming into town to see Arenado. I mean, he's the one guy that, does things that nobody else can do at third base. So maybe, I don't know. Are you going to keep him or are you not? So there's going to be a few weeks, I think, of limbo. I doubt that they trade him right away. But that brings to mind, let's say they do. And I think we're kind of leaning maybe 60-40, maybe even heavier than that they're going to deal Arenado. Who plays third base? Gorman's candidate number one. I think Donovan's an obvious. You can play that if Gorman can't. And then the other guy is Saggese. I'm very, very interested in Thomas Saggese. I remember once upon a time when another Tommy jumped out of the minor leagues and took us by surprise, and that was Tommy Edman. Didn't take Rick Hummel by surprise. He
nailed it.
Mish said it right away. I remember it. Tommy Edman, that's all he wanted to talk about. But Edman became, I would say, a very, very good baseball player who now has a monster contract, to all things considered, his position with the Dodgers. So could Saggese be that? I think there's a very good chance of that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's a guy you got to find him at least 400 at bats this year, at least, depending on how he does, right? I mean, if he stinks, well, then yeah, it's going to be less. But if he's hitting, you got to find him at bats. Get him a left field glove or an outfield glove. I guess there's no left field glove, right? It's the same as the right field glove. But get him some reps in the outfield. Get him some reps at second base. Get him some reps at third. He can play short. It's not his best spot, but on a day where you want to give Mason Wynn a day off, that's Saggese. You've got to get him 400, 450 at bats, because unlike Tommy Edman, he's a different guy. I mean, like, there's a similar story there, but he's a different guy in that he's a power guy. Edman is contact and speed and versatile defense. Saggese's not real fast. He is versatile defensively, not as versatile as Tommy, but he's got pop. And that's something they're going to need moving forward. They need more thump, when it comes to, the development of and that's what we talked about yesterday with Gorman and Walker, right? You need that power production. You've got to find at bats, and I mean a lot of at bats for Thomas Saggese. And that might come at the expense at times. And by the way, no reason he can't, get at bats as a DH against lefties, because Burleson shouldn't be facing lefties. I think we're at the point now that he faces righties. He's not 22. He's not 24 like Nolan. Well, he is pretty young. What's he, 25, Burley? But I think you got to find opportunities for Saggese, not platoon opportunities, just all across the board. And because we're talking about all of this, Tom, I think you have to get rid of, trade, dump, move Arenado, no matter what it takes. If it means giving him away, then give him away. If it means just getting salary relief, then get the salary relief and create the opportunity. Because if he's here, he's getting 600 at bats. He's going to play 154 games. He's going to play every day.
32 million.
Right. But he's going to play every day. And even if we take money out, which we can't, because a big part of what we're talking about here is freeing up some payroll. But even if we take money out, there are no at-bats for Thomas Saggese if Nolan Arenado's here. Not unless you're willing to cut bait on Gorman. Or not unless you're willing to play Lars Nootbaar in center field every day. And they haven't shown any willingness to do that in the past. You know, if you're going to say, well, Lars is our everyday center fielder and Donovan's going to play left and Gorman's going to play second and then Saggese's going to move around second, third, left, DH. All right. I mean, it works, but do you think they're going to play Newton center field every day? I don't.
No.
You got to move Arenado, even if you don't get a good return. You didn't give up much to get him. What did you give up? A back-end starter, Austin Gomber? I mean, that's fine. If you don't get much back for that, it's not the end of the world. You got to save money and you got to create playing time.
And you got paid $50 million.
Well, that's a good point. Right. Right. You didn't have to foot the whole bill. So let's say whoever, Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, Phillies have been mentioned. They're apparently trying to trade Alec Boehm because they want to get better defensively on the infield. Any of those teams comes to you and says, if you guys can make it so that we only have to pay him $20 million a year, we'll give you our 8th best prospect and we'll take on the rest of the money. I'm doing it. I'm going to save the 20 and I'm going to give the playing time to other guys because if you're doing a reset, that's how you reset. You don't reset by running it back from a team that didn't work last year.
The Gashouse Gang is sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. Bernie Miklas, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler, Tom Ackerman make up the Gashouse Gang. Wheels and Ackerman with you here. And let's talk about our football teams for just a moment, and then we'll get into the rest of the college football playoff. 2 football teams that I think are going to be in the playoff projections when they come out today, and I think pretty close to each other. My prediction is that Indiana will be 10, and I think that Miami will slip in that last spot. The problem is that there are still so many unknowns out there, not for Indiana necessarily, but for the Canes. I think Indiana's kind of held on to an at-large, and they're going to be fine. They're 11-1, which is still incredible for me to say. And they smoked Purdue because they had to get the playoff committee's attention and to satisfy them. Now, what if the ACC is won by Clemson? Then what do? What if the Big 12 is won by Iowa State? Well, then that would eliminate, one team, and Iowa State would get in. One of those teams is going to win that Big 12. But there are still a lot of ifs. I think Alabama's still sitting there hoping that their strength of schedule, even though they got blasted by Oklahoma with 3 losses, that they can slip in there. But I think the Canes will get the nod. The rest of it, who knows? It's completely up in the air at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Tom. I think for Indiana, you guys are good. You're in. I don't see that changing in any way, shape, or form. Even if it's a loss against Oregon, it's not gonna. You're still gonna be at worst. You're gonna be 12. I'd still say you're probably 10 or 11 in that scenario, depending on, I don't know, I guess based on this weekend, it might be a little higher because they were 10 last week. So maybe they're 8 or 9 now. I think your guys are good. There's nothing to worry about there. Miami's in a bad spot, man, because if Clemson wins, they're in because they're going to be one of the top 4 seeds. That's how that works. And then that means that SMU is going to be an at-large with 2 losses. Because their second loss will be against the ACC champ in the ACC championship game. As much as I want to make the case for Miami, and I can make a case for them over Alabama, for example. Number one, having one less loss, but number two, when you look at Alabama having losses against Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, those teams are both worse than the teams that Miami beat.
Yeah,
they are. I mean, that Miami lost to. Georgia Tech and Syracuse are better than both of those teams. Now, the difference is, and again, this is why I like doing this stuff because it's fun. Bama does have a signature win. They beat Georgia, right? I mean, they beat a Mizzou team that was ranked at the time and beat them badly. They beat LSU. Those are wins that Miami doesn't have. Miami doesn't have the big signature win. And we've played even some of the wins that we have are against really bad teams in games that came down to the final play, like Virginia Tech. So if Miami is left out, they earned it. They left themselves out. It will not be because of some slight from the committee.
Yeah,
they will have left themselves out.
And on Indiana's side, they don't have a signature win, but they destroyed everybody in their path except for Michigan, and that has actually been valued a little higher now since Michigan beat Ohio State. The loss to Ohio State, where they scored a late touchdown and ended up winning that 38-15 instead of 31-15, whatever. It's a loss and a tough one where special teams imploded and their protections broke down or whatever, but it doesn't necessarily kill them. These are the games that to watch out for now. Friday night, watch out for Barry Odom and UNLV. They could very easily win that game against Boise State and send that into some Boise State.
I think that knocks Boise out.
It does. It does knock them out. Iowa State, Arizona State, I think is going to be a great football game in the Big 12. Georgia, Texas, Penn State, Oregon, Clemson, SMU. Those are the conference games. And hopefully there's no more flag planting. I mean, enough already. It's just, I know that Baker Mayfield started this whole thing. I guess it was kind of funny then. Once it's done, it was done like 4 times on Saturday. Like, what is with all this?
It's like anything else, Tom. It starts trending. You know?
And Michigan, of course, not only the flag planting and the pushing and shoving wasn't enough, then they take the flag through Ohio State a second time. I mean, come on, everybody. What happened to going back and celebrating? With your team and dumping Gatorade on your coach and lifting your coach up in the locker room and singing the fight song and all that stuff. Isn't that what they do? I don't
but that won't go viral, Tom. Just saying. I'm not defending, by the way. I'm just saying, just like we were talking earlier about young baseball fans, young players, young college students, they're looking at it differently. They're trying to go viral. They're trying to have a moment. They're trying to do something that people are going to be talking about. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that's the reality. And, there are 2 sides to this. One, don't be a jerk and plant the flag on someone, because I've operated this way in my life as an adult. If I wouldn't want someone to do a thing to me, then I won't do it to someone else. So if it would enrage me that you planted your flag on my field, well, then I won't do that to you, right? I think that's a really good way to look at this. So there's that part, but then there's also the other part. You lost. Turn around, walk off the field, suck it up. You lost. If you want to get revenge, beat them next time and plant the flag on their field.
Absolutely. Right.
There's two sides to that. Neither side is right. They're both, like in this case, all of the fighting stuff, all of the sides were wrong. Simple. But I don't think it's a crisis, because I think it's going to go away. I think this is it's people looking for a moment that's going to get trending, and I don't think it's going to be that exciting in the future because it'll be old.
Let's hope that these high schools and youth teams and all that stuff, they don't pick up on that, but they might. I don't know.
Of course they will, but again, they'll do it once or twice and then it'll be over.
Yeah, hopefully it's a trend that fades. For Kevin Wheeler, I'm Tom Ackerman, Gashouse Gang. Love doing this. Tomorrow I'll be with Matt Pauley, and I will be in Nashville.
Look at you
doing some hoops. So
hey, can we do a fashion shout out real fast?
Yeah.
Because Sharon in Clayton's watching us on Twitter and she likes the shirt.
Nice.
I need TP.
Thanks to our producer, Drew Young. As always, this replay is on KMOX. We will see you next time.